I've been asked to do a design for a dragon and just give an indication as to how this actually could be converted to look on or appear on Memorial Designer. So I've just imported the dragon as an image into Memorial Designer or into Corel, and I'm going to just have a quick play with the actual image and see what we can do with it. So I'm going to right click my bitmap and I'm going to say edit the bitmap because I want to take off this text and I want to enhance the dragon so that we can actually see it a bit closer. So if I click edit bitmap, and that opens up PhotoPaint with the dragon in there, and I'm just going to go and delete using the eraser. I'm just going to clear off some of the text around the outside here, just to try and neaten it up so I don't end up with too many odd artifacts when we actually start tracing this, which is I think the way we're going to go down the route. There's a variety of ways of doing this. I'll quickly show you when I finish clearing this up why I chose, or why I think a trace is probably going to work out best. So just finishing off, just finishing off clearing off that, get rid of those, and I think we're more or less there. So all I've done so far is just use the eraser, take off all the bits that we don't want to display, and I'm now going to adjust the contrast levels on this and basically try and draw out as much information as I can. Now we can use the bar at the top here to adjust at what point we're actually creating thresholds, etc., and the outputs. If we wanted to make it lighter or darker, we can do this. And if we adjust the gamma, then it'll just move the brightness like that. So I'm looking for something that sort of looks vaguely in keeping with what the design is. I mean, ultimately it's a design that's been drawn, hand drawn, and we just want to make this look like it's going to appear a little bit on the memorial. We're not going to be using this design to actually carve the dragon, I hasten to add. The dragon is going to be done manually, and all we're doing is trying to give a visual representation of what it's going to look like. So that looks okay to me. I can see I've just highlighted a few more artifacts up here that I'm just going to remove. There's probably a few bits here and there, etc. The other thing that I'm going to do at this point here is I'm just going to say, well, what would happen if I did a Magic Wand select? So I'm just going to do a select around this, and you can see that it's picked out the dragon relatively closely, but if I zoom in, you can see that there's various bits kicking around the outside, which may or may not be what we're really after. The chances are we don't want all these little bits. So one of the options we've got here at this point is to actually take the dragon and put it onto a separate layer and just save the dragon and then just use it as JPEG. So let's just go down that route and let's see what happens. So I'm just going to press F4, sorry, F4 to zoom everything. I've done a Magic Wand select, so that's selected all this white area, and what I'm actually interested in is not the white area, I want the dragon. So I'm now going to do mask invert, and that will then give me the dragon selected. I'm going to do edit and copy, and then I'm going to do edit and paste as a new object. So over here, if I just remove that mask remove, I'm using all the keystrokes just so that you can see what's going on. I would use, all the mouse clicks, I would use keystrokes to do a lot of this work here, the shortcut keys. So you can see here that if I just hide the background layer, that we've got the dragon and only the dragon. And if I was to click save, file, save, it'll save it back to my CorelDRAW, which is down here. And I can see that I've got my dragon. And if I wanted to, I could just scale this, blow him up so that he looks like he's filling the memorial, much as it's likely to appear in the final design. And potentially that's good enough. Maybe that's what we're looking for. That certainly would give a visual representation of how the dragon's going to look on the stone. It might be enough for what you're trying to achieve, but there are other things that we can do. So if I quickly go back to PhotoPaint and just take a couple of steps backwards, so I'm just going to delete that object there. And let's pretend that we didn't go any further than just enhancing the design and getting the background as it stands. I'm going to click Finish Editing, and that will put me back to here. So I've just cleaned it up and enhanced it slightly. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to right click and say trace the bitmap. So I'm actually after an outline trace. You'll learn the difference. So outline trace basically will create me an object for every object that you can see, whereas centerline trace will assume that you're drawing around the center of lines. Play around with it, you'll understand the difference. Once it's much easier just to play and understand the difference rather than me trying to describe it. So what I'm going to do is an outline trace. I'm just going to choose a detailed logo. These work in different ways. I don't actually know what the difference between them is and what each one does. I do, however, know that generally speaking, if I go for detailed logo, I end up with something that looks about right for what I'm looking for. Quite often the bitmaps that you bring in are too big and then just need to reduce them. Don't worry about that, just click reduce size. It won't reduce the actual output that you're getting. What you can see now is that the computer's just going to try and work out, well, what's this best going to look like, and it can take a couple of seconds just to sort of try and trace it. Corel's trace features are just astonishing. I have no idea how it does it. Obviously not quite what we're looking for though. We can see that a lot of the detail on the dragon has gone, including teeth and various scales, etc. We've got this slider here called detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide that detail slider over towards the more detail side, and you'll see that we should get back a lot more of the details. So we've now got teeth, we've got scales, we've got eyes properly, etc. Looking a whole lot better. However, there's one thing that isn't looking better, and I'll explain why in a minute, and that's the number of colours that it's decided to choose for me. 160 colours. I don't really want to see 160 colours. I'd much rather have something that's a lot lower. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say choose 8 colours. Now, don't ask me why, but it doesn't automatically refresh that, so I just choose that and it will now do the refresh and redraw it for me. So we've still got the same level of detail, but instead of having 160 colours, we've now just got 8, and we can immediately see that we've got 2 very black colours, R4 and R6, the starting numbers. We've got a number of very light colours, so 255, 255, 255 is pure white, so these are all very close to white. This one's pretty close to white, and we've got a slightly off grey one here, and another pretty white one there. I'll explain why this is important in a second, but what I'm going to do on the settings tab is I'm going to make sure group objects by colour is selected, and that helps me further on down the line. So I'm now going to do a trace. I've got remove background as well, so that's why it's taken that background, that white background out. I'm going to click OK there, and because I didn't say delete original object, I've now got 2 dragons here. So there's my trace dragon, which is actually a vector, and here's my original bitmap. So I can delete my original bitmap, and I'm just going to put my dragon on the screen here. All looking really rather similar to the last instance, apart from the fact that when I drag it, you see the blue lines there showing that it's a vector rather than a bitmap. But ultimately, at the moment, it looks very, very similar to the image that we did earlier on. Over here, and I quite often have Object Manager and Object Properties open. I guess you guys probably all have fills as your default, but I tend to use the Object Manager for when I'm doing this type of work. You can see that I have my OG in the background, which is just 2319, and I have a group of 7 objects. These are the objects grouped by colour. And so you can see here my 243, 248, 250, there's my pure white, it's 253. I've got my 2 black sets of objects here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ungroup these objects, and I'm going to convert this so that I've now got, I can just select my black objects and I can just select my mainly white objects. I'm going to select these 2 black objects, and I'm going to convert those into a group, and I'm going to left click the button over here to turn those pure black. I'm going to take my other objects, I'll just move that to the top of the layer a second. I'm going to take my other objects, whoops, here, down to here, and I'm going to make those pure white. And so far, nothing particularly unusual has happened. I've just converted those to objects, grouped those together. So far, nothing unusual, but I know that this person wants to paint the dragon. So if we were trying to do a layout where the dragon was painted, for example, red, because this is supposed to be a Welsh dragon, we can now colour our dragon red. So all I've done is I've just taken all those objects which I made white and coloured them red. Whether this is exactly how the design is going to look or not, I don't know. Maybe we're going to have white wings. So what I can then do is I can then take my Smart Fill tool and I can add in, by clicking in each of these sections here, I'll let my computer catch up. I can create some more objects like this, and let's just group those objects and let's make those white. And I can play around to my heart's content, creating whatever it is that I think the customer's going to be wanting. One area that you might struggle with is if you wanted to make the teeth white or the eye white. It's slightly more awkward to do that type of thing, but ultimately just keep playing to your heart's content. You can take these objects, delete them. They are all vectors, so you can just pick things up and break all the objects apart and pick individual items out, etc., and colour them as you want. So another thing that I might choose to do on here is just take the chest like this and just make all of those objects white as well. I hope that helps. I hope that gives you an idea as to how you can address sort of custom designs where somebody's drawn you something and you wanted to drop it into the screen. If the customer wasn't seeing this coloured and I had no intention of showing the customer this coloured, then I would never have gone down the route of actually vectorizing it, etc. I would have just gone for the straight edit the image and then remove the dragon from the background. For a proof of concept for a customer, that's probably sufficient. If you wanted to go the whole hog and do all of the colouring, etc., then vectorize it and then start adding in the artifacts as you need them to make that work. I hope that helps, and another video coming up shortly, I'm sure.